Hi, my name is Bob Brenton. I'm creating this video for Lex Friedman because it is his questions about reality that are the inspiration for it. I hope it is helpful to Lex and to any others on their journey through life. To Lex, thank you for the great work that you do. I love your interviews and the great minds you have introduced to people like me. They have been very thought-provoking and introduce a lot of very interesting topics. Again, thank you. This video is an encouragement to interview a different type of person for one of your podcasts, a mystic. Mystics have a different perspective on the world, which may shed some light on the really big topics you cover, consciousness, love, and existence itself. I'd like to share with you how, at least this mystic, sees the universe. It is a little bit counterintuitive at first, but I hope you stick with me because of the way it resolves many of these questions. First of all, this is a deviation from the materialist paradigm we all swim in. In the materialist paradigm, the story about ourselves goes something like this. First, there was a Big Bang. Time passes, the laws of nature allow complexity to emerge, then life, and then consciousness appears on the scene. Matter, or in the case of humans, brains, as a collection of matter, produces consciousness. There's one major problem with this story, and that is the hard problem of consciousness. There doesn't seem to be a way to get from bumping particles of the material world to the phenomena we experience. Whether it is sensations like taste or touch, or the process of thinking, or emotions like love, there seems to be no reason why a reality made out of bumping particles could experience qualia. How do we bridge the gap between charge, momentum, spin, chemical reactions, and the like over to sensations? However, when we examine our lives, qualia is all that there is. The only way we really know reality is via the experience of qualia. Sight, sound, taste, touch, thought, emotion. It is our conscious experience of these things that make up our existence. This has stunning implications for the nature of reality. Is there something objective that exists without being experienced as qualia? At the very least, I can say that my experience is mediated through conscious experience, and it is meaningless to talk about existence without consciousness. In our quest to reduce everything to the one simplest explanation, we end up with an intractable problem. The answer of matter still leaves us with consciousness, while simultaneously robbing reality of life. You are matter assembled in a special way that happens to consciously realize it in a vast, uncaring universe, nothing more. This is where the mystical interpretation of the data comes in. Rather than start with matter, the mystic starts with consciousness, or spirit as primary, and derives matter from that. The rest of this video will be trying to make the case for this interpretation and gives avenues of exploration for yourself. The primary issue with the mystical interpretation is the problem of woo. I'll try to keep that at a minimum by pointing to phenomenology and widely accepted reports, and I'll even try to point out why the domain of science can't apply. In order to understand what is going on here, we need to understand what exactly consciousness is capable of. We have already touched on qualia, but there are a few other relevant powers of consciousness. The first is amnesia, the ability to forget. Not just the small f forget, like I forgot where I put my keys, but the large F, as in I don't believe I've ever had X experience, despite other people's claim to the contrary. This type of amnesia is often related to trauma, but will be relevant to the mystical perspective. The second power of consciousness is the ability to separate or disassociate from itself to create multiple simultaneous but separate experiences. There are two types of evidence I would point to in describing this. The first are split brain patients. These people have their corpus callosum cut due to an issue like epilepsy, or sometimes they're born with the two halves of their brain not connected correctly. What happens is quite strange. They can behave as though there are two personalities living in one head. Sometimes the two sides will fight, the right hemisphere controlling the left side of the body, and the left hemisphere controlling the right side of it. For example, the two sides might disagree on what clothes to wear, favorite color, or even the existence of God, sometimes with one hand slapping the other to exert dominance. There's another type of people who have disassociation, and that would be those with dissociative identity disorder. In those people, there is the appearance of multiple personalities within one body. Their goals may not align, and their abilities may not as well. Sometimes these disassociated personalities are able to reintegrate, which involves the death of the personality, but an integration of the memories and experiences into the ones that remain. There are also stories of some of these personalities being able to create worlds in the imaginal realm, wherein all the personalities are able to interact, often with their own unique imaginal bodies. The last power of consciousness is the ability to dream. Dreaming has a couple of unique properties which are relevant. First of all, there is the creation of the world. Second is the creation of the perspective in that world, much like we have a perspective in this world. Third is the telling of the story. Usually we play the role of ourselves, but sometimes we take on the role of animals or other people. While the dream happens, we are lost in the story, completely hypnotized by whatever is going on, and we accept it as real until we wake up. Waking up from the dream comes with its own set of realizations. First, there's a comparison of dream reality to waking reality, and in that comparison, we know one to be the illusion and the other to be real. At that point, we go through a process of discounting or minimizing the illusion. Even if it was a very vivid dream, it is placed in the category of things to be ignored, a mere distraction from our everyday existence, and quickly forgotten. At this point, we have the necessary components to begin understanding the mystical interpretation of reality. It will sound strange at first, but at the end, I'll give you some methods of testing this out for yourself. The story is as follows. There is one spirit, God, consciousness. It exists for eternity. It is the only thing that exists. Like our consciousness, it is a no thing. This spirit is infinitely intelligent, and the first thing it knows about spirit is that there is only one, existential loneliness. This spirit has the capacity to dream, and like our dreams, it follows a pattern. These dreams are concepts, ideas for the spirit. It dreams time, it dreams matter, it dreams all possible universes. It then begins a process of disassociation, a creation of perspectives to inhabit this dream. This process of disassociation is accompanied by amnesia. The spirit forgets what it is and becomes lost in the story of its dream. This process of disassociation is the process of life. This forgetfulness is accompanied by the veil in its own mind, in our minds, I should say. Thoughts appear as from the void. Qualia registers on our consciousness, and it is all seamless. And the veil keeps us from remembering what we are, this spirit. This brings us into the question about love. What is love? The experience of spirit is love. Not just any love, but unconditional love. We experience day to day, the love we experience day to day is conditioned by our environment. We love family, friends, country, or maybe even the planet. But we also have plenty of room for hate. Hate for the distasteful, for the evil. From the perspective of spirit, all is loved unconditionally and held with equal care in the dream. The reason for this is because spirit cannot be harmed. You can experience whatever you want to in this life, but nothing you do can ever harm spirit. It cannot be killed or even hurt. In fact, spirit has been killing itself in every form over and over and over for all eternity. Symbolically, this truth is represented in many cultures by the Ouroboros, the dragon that eats its own tail in a never-ending circle. I can almost hear you ask, Lex, but what proof do you have of this? Is there any science to support this story? I'd like to tackle this question in two parts. The first is to point to the limits of science, and the second is an encouragement to find out for yourself. The limits of science come from our position in this story. We are in the dream, and the story is about that which is outside and generating the dream. Imagine, if you will, that you go to bed tonight. As you are sleeping, you will have the most vivid dream. You are standing in a science lab with telescopes and microscopes, all the equipment you could ever want. You begin to perform experiments. The question is there any experiment you can do that will inform you that you are in a dream? So long as you are enthralled by the dream itself and convinced it is real, no, you are stuck. You cannot figure out you are in the dream by studying the dream. Rather, you must go back through consciousness to end the dream. Now let's ask another question. What would the edges of the dream look like from within the dream? I put forward the idea that on the smallest scale, it would look like quantum mechanics, vibrating fields of no thing. On the largest scales, it would look like the cosmic microwave background radiation. On the fastest scales, it would look like the speed of light and all the strange relativistic quirks it has. It looks like magnetism and the fundamental forces. Science is an awesome tool at studying the dream, but it is categorically insufficient tool for studying the dreamer. Its objectivity is based on its repeatability and consensus with other perspectives. But the way to study the dreamer is subjectively through our own conscious experience. Entirely wrong category, even the wrong direction. So how do you find out for yourself? Is Bob full of crap, or can this be explored? The key to that is the mystical experience. Mystical experiences are a part of human history, from the Buddha sitting under his tree, to the shamans in the Amazon rainforest, to Jesus and the apostles, even Moses. There are many ways of having them as there are people, but the common ones are through meditation, fasting and prayer, or psychedelic use. Less common are near-death experiences, and not many people have those intentionally, so I'd recommend sticking with either meditation or psychedelics. The mystical experience has the quality of waking up from this dream of reality. There's a unification of all things, a feeling of oneness. It often presents itself as a memory, like, oh yes, of course this is how it works. How silly of me to have forgotten. It has the feeling of being more real than everyday reality. All of these I've alluded to as being feelings and sensations we are familiar with when analyzing the process of dreaming. At the same time, the association with this form of Bob ends, and there is a re-identification with spirit. Time becomes a concept, and that is dropped as an idea. The word transcend is often used to describe this. At this point, I think I've said enough about mystics and how they view the world. If you'd like to talk sometime, please reach out. I would also highly recommend talking to Bernardo Kastrup. He's a bit of a mystic who worked at CERN and has the credentials many people look to for guidance. I would also recommend talking to the people at MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, or thinkers like Dustin Hoffman, who's working on a scientific model for consciousness. I would also recommend John Vervaake's work on cognitive science. There's a lot of very interesting work being done in the realm of consciousness, and I think we are on the cusp of some major breakthroughs in understanding this reality we find ourselves in. I hope, Lex, that this reaches you. I hope that it sparks your imagination and pushes you forward into some other areas of study. Like I said before, if you feel like reaching out, please do. I'd be happy to talk sometime. But yes, this is going to be a world-changing set of ideas. They are not going away in so long as psychedelics are around, and they seem to be here to stay. So take care, have a great day, and thank you for your time.